Welcome in, Kendra Andrews. How are we doing tonight, Kendra? Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, no problem. I'm doing well. How are you guys?
We're doing fantastic. I bet a little bit of a whirlwind with all of the attention that the Chris Paul interview got at the beginning of the week. Let me ask it to you this way, though, because what many people may have seen, are you coaching the interview as far as video is concerned. I also read your article where it's obvious to me that you had done a lot of source reporting. You've had a lot of conversations within the organization about where this topic is going. So why don't I ask you what you know or what you think you know about this? How surprised would you be if Chris Paul was a starter?
I would be very surprised if Chris Paul was a starter, at least to start the year. Based on conversations I've had with people in the organization, and frankly, I think conversations before Chris Paul even came to the Warriors is that, yeah, he's going to be coming off the bench. You have Klay Thompson, you have Stephen Curry. Those guys, as long as they are able to, are the Warriors starters. We saw that with Jordan Poole, right? And Chris Paul is, of course, a different stratosphere than Jordan is. But when they traded Jordan, that was who they were replacing. That role, that sixth man, that backup guard was who they were replacing, and that's now Chris Paul. So I would be very shocked if he was a starter. And I also, like I said before, I think that those conversations, even though Chris said, those aren't explicit conversations he's had with Steve Kerr as of yet. I don't think that you come to Golden State in the role that he did or in the situation that he did and not know. At least there's a very, very, very good chance that he would be coming off the bench.
I think one of the reasons that this conversation has been happening, Kendra, is just because of Chris Paul's obviously Hall of Fame career. If he did start, who do you think would be the odd man out and who would end up on the bench?
I think that my first thought with this goes, they start small. My first thought goes, you have a 3-guard starting lineup. You have Andrew Wiggins and you have Draymond Green. And then Kevon Looney moves to the bench. I don't know if the Warriors would do that, especially as just their regular starting lineup. We certainly see them do that when the matchup dictates it throughout playoff series when they're trying to make adjustments. But also just as the typical big man has kind of emerged, Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, you now have Wemby, of course, coming in. You have all these big, big players. I don't know if the Warriors are going to feel comfortable, going smaller. And also then there's a question of, okay, you have Steph, Draymond, and Chris Paul all on the floor as your starters. Would that even work? And I answer to that.
Kendra Andrews with us here of ESPN on 95.7 The Game. Also, Kendra, I don't want to make the assumption that everybody listening has heard the interview to which we're referring. So let me play this clip for everybody because I know we have a couple of more angles to discuss on it. Here it is.
You'd be coming off the bench playing with the second unit that's a lot younger than the Warriors of the past have been with J.K. and Moses. Just what do you think of their depth, their bench players that you might be playing alongside?
You coaching?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know what the situation is going to be yet. You know what I mean? So I think that'll be for us to figure out once we get going.
You've never come off the bench in your entire career. Is that something that you'd be willing to do?
Like I said, it'll be a conversation for us when camp starts or whatnot. But me and Steve have talked or whatnot. But that ain't something that you'd be like, what up, man? Where you starting? You coming up? You know what I mean? So I think we'll figure all that stuff out in camp.
Kendra, I was very mindful in the time that if you listen to that, there were actually 2 questions asked there that Chris wasn't really answering, starting with yours. You were trying to ask him what he thought of Jonathan Kuminga and different people he'd be playing with. You were in the room. Did you take the way he was responding as sort of an indicator on how he feels about the idea of coming off the bench?
Maybe. I don't know the full answer to that. I think that's, even if he does know, it's clearly not something he wants to talk about. And I think that a lot of the times when news and you see a guy redirect a comment or a question, whatever their reasoning is, they just don't want to talk about it. You know, parallel but different, but similar, whatever. You know, Jordan Poole also had his press conference in Vegas as a new Wizard, and there were several Warriors reporters there trying to ask him about his time with Golden State or the incident with Draymond Green, and he redirects it. And it's just whatever reason, these guys don't want to talk about it. And I think for Chris, if and when it becomes official that he is coming off the bench or that is his role, maybe he'll want to talk about it then. Maybe he won't want to talk about it, but he certainly didn't really want to get into it in that instance.
You know, Kendra, you brought up Jonathan Kuminga, and there was the report last year about not being happy in the Game 7 speech, and now most recently on the Sports Illustrated piece, he talks about how he's not sure about the Chris Paul fit. Meanwhile, you're asking Chris Paul, a lot of us are thinking this is going to be great for Jonathan Kuminga. When everything came out about we need to figure out what his role is going to be, where is Jonathan Kuminga, as far as you know, in terms of his relationship with the Warriors organization and how happy he is?
I mean, as far as I know, there's no big issues or anything that should make people say they're butting heads or there's a tear in the relationship between Kaminga and the Warriors. You know, the thing with last season, especially in the playoffs, is a lot of people were, you know, just frustrated overall, whether it was with their personal minutes, their personal roles, or just how the team was playing as a whole. Everyone was frustrated. I think that, you know, heading into next season, Kaminga should be given a much bigger role just based on bodies and based on personnel who the Warriors have. I am curious overall how Chris Paul fits in with the fabric of the Warriors, but specifically in Jonathan Kuminga's case, I could see it actually being good because in Chris Paul, what the Warriors want him to be is just don't turn the ball over as you're really, really good at doing, and set people up as you're really, really good at doing. And having Chris Paul be able to do that he should just be able to feed the ball to Kaminga where Kaminga wants it and just allow Kaminga to be that aggressive guy down low that makes him, you know, so explosive. So, again, on paper, and if it goes like that, even though it's, of course, going to be more complicated than that because it always is, you know, it should be a decent thing for Jonathan.
Kendra, I got one more with regard to the conversation you had with Chris Paul. It certainly felt with the way that he responded that maybe you were being presumptuous in some sort of a way, even though, again, the question you were asking ended up being something a little bit different. Did you review it at all? Like, how did you feel about the way that you phrased your question?
Well, it's funny because in the question, you're right, I was asking it. I wasn't asking it as a blunt, are you coming off the bench? I was trying to get a feel of, you know, it is just such a different team, this Warriors team, and it has been changing so much over the last several years, really. But if you look most recently at their championship team, all of their role players are gone, right? I mean, Gary Payton II is back, but Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody were not really playing, you know, during that finals run. They were rookies that year. Otto Porter Jr. is gone. Nemanja Bjelica is gone. Andre Iguodala, we're pretty sure he's not going to come back, that he's retired. He hasn't officially announced it, but we'll make that assumption, right? He wasn't on the team in their championship year back in 2022. It's so different. And then even last year, you look at role players. Dante DiVincenzo isn't back. Even a guy like Ty Jerome isn't back. Juan Toscano Anderson gone. David Lee, or excuse me, not David Lee. I'm driving right now. Damian Lee. Geez.
Damian Lee, yeah.
All of these guys are gone. It's a very different bench. It's a very young bench. He would be coming in as that veteran guy to settle them down. What do you think of that? So, in some ways, I was softballing him a question because I definitely could have just asked, hey, how do you feel about coming off the bench?
Yeah, I think that's all good points there, Kendra. So going back to last season, a lot is coming out. We heard Steph Curry at the golf tournament, you know, talk about everybody getting back on the same page. We heard Larry Harris also say that the locker room was fractured. Obviously, there was the punch, but besides the punch, if it's even possible to have that conversation, Did something just feel off all season? And if it did, going back to the championship season, did something feel weird? Because now we're hearing these reports of, all right, well, something with Jordan Poole before the punch. Was there anything going on even before the punch, even during the championship run?
Not that I'm aware of. I think, again, as I listed off all of those players that are no longer here, chemistry and camaraderie is such an important part of building a championship team. And whether there are specific instances or it's just these guys don't have as close of relationships as X team or Y team, that does change things. And I think that also sometimes you have to pull back and look more big picture of, okay, just because these two players don't work well together, don't like each other, there are more relationships within a team than player-to-player relationship. And I think that that's important to note. And that's extremely important in building a championship. The players, it's so much is on them, but it also comes down to other people and how everyone gels and gets along. They found something really good in 2022. They hit their stride at the right time. They had players be able to come up off the bench and, like I was just listing, Otto Porter and Nemanja Bjelica and all these guys. And whether it was roster construct, whether it's guys not getting along last year, they just didn't have it. And also, the Western Conference is just I think it's better than it's ever been in such a long time. And so the Warriors are no longer, during their dynasty days, just expected to be on top. Everyone else is getting a lot better, and now the Warriors have to match what every other team in this league is doing, and not just them matching the Warriors.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and HD1 San Francisco, always live on Twitch, YouTube, and the free Odyssey app. And we are talking with Kendra Andrews of ESPN, embedded with the Warriors for sure. Kendra, a couple of things with regard to Jonathan Kuminga, who I know you've addressed already here, but there has been the thought, a question, I think, in the back of some minds that maybe he would also be a piece that gets moved this offseason. What percentage would you say the chances are of him being on the team this year? And then what exactly is the role? What do they need him to be every night this year?
Yeah, I'm not a big percent person when it comes to that, just because I feel like we've seen so many trades of like last year, if you asked me, would Kevin Durant be on the Nets still when the season started, I think I would have said, oh, there's a slim chance, but then he ended up, so those type of things. But I think in terms of what his role would actually be, again, the depth of the Warriors took a hit this offseason through free agency, and they're trying to retool that. But, with Kaminga now, he's going to be in his third year. They need him to be someone who can battle inside. They're a small team. They're not getting bigger. Mike Dunleavy Jr. has talked about that. We don't necessarily feel the need to go and add all these big bodies. And if that's the case, then Kaminga has to use just his strength and athleticism to play bigger than he actually is in size. And I think that would earn him much higher rotation minutes than anything else. Steve Kerr has talked about so much that, an aggressive Jonathan Kuminga is the best version of himself. It's what this team really needs, because no other player, maybe Andrew Wiggins, but no one else has that level of explosiveness, and it really sets him apart from the other guys on the team.
Kendra, everybody's watching Summer League, of course, and Warrior fans are excited about it. You look at Brandon Pajemski, who's struggled a little bit with his shot. We're just now seeing Trace Jackson-Davis. What kind of role do you think these young guys will have with the team this year? Do you think they'll be in the G League, or do you think they might be able to come in and help out the big guys?
Did we lose Kendra? I thought it was a great question.
Man.
She clearly hated it.
Yeah.
She was like, you coaching? Hell,
You coaching? My favorite part of that was the okay after. Like, he really wanted to know the answer. Because she says no, and he goes, oh, okay.
Almost as if it was a real question.
Yeah, okay, I just was checking.
You're not? You're not on the staff?
Let me continue now.
I know the Warriors, they lost Jama Malalela. Are you the replacement?
You coaching? Oh, okay. Now that I know that.
Listen, I think it's important to a couple of things that, especially for those of you who kind of went on the ride that we all went on in playing that clip over and over and over and dissecting it and whatnot. Look, we got to get used to Chris Paul being a Warrior, and he's, it is a little bit different. But Kendra talks to people. She talked to a lot of people not named Chris Paul about this. And I firmly believe that she knows what she's talking about when she says that the plan is for Chris Paul to come off the bench. So, when that was the backdrop of the question, it makes some sense when you look at it that way. Oh, Kendra's back. All right. So Alan, ask your amazing question again. What was the question?
The question was the two rookies coming in, Trace and Brandon Pajemski. What role do you think they'll have on the team this year?
That's a good question, and it's one that I'm curious to see as well how big their roles are, because Mike Dunleavy Jr. says we draft guys, or we drafted this year, we drafted guys who we feel can a little bit more be ready to contribute right away. I don't think that they're going to go out there and be super high volume minute rotation players. I think they're going to be towards the end of the bench, but there will be some playing opportunities for them. Maybe, of course, having depth, injuries, they always happen. You always need to have backups. The thing that I'm curious to see, though, more so than them playing, is if they're not playing, what does their development look like? The past 3 years, really since James Wiseman was drafted, the Warriors have struggled to develop young players, so much so that this season they've completely retooled and revamped their player development program and way of doing it. Bringing Steph Cooper over from the G League, David Fitoki as well from Santa Cruz, Gemma, who was one of their head player development coaches, left to go back to Toronto. So I'm really curious to see, okay, if Brandon and Trace aren't playing a lot, how are they going to bring these guys along? Because the Warriors haven't been able to do that so far.
Kendra, great stuff. And honestly, really appreciate you answering questions about your questions.
Yeah, of course. No, thanks for asking. I do think I might dress up as a coach for Halloween this year.
I think it'd be a great idea. Yeah, as long as Chris sees it.
Right. I'll wear it to hopefully they play on Halloween, and I'll get to go to the game as a coach.
Yeah, big sign across your forehead. Yes, I'm coaching. Kendra, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, you guys. Have a good one.
All right, there it is. Kendra Andrews, ESPN.